Am I the asshole? For calling out my sister at her birthday dinner and ruining the vibe? My F30 sister Kim F33 had her birthday dinner 2 nights ago. There were about 12 people in attendance. Kim and I aren't close. She was the golden child and I was the scapegoat. Kim was always very cruel to me and got away with it because my mom never held her accountable. Kim had one too many drinks at dinner and began telling an incredibly traumatizing story from my childhood. Kim constantly tells this story as if it's goofy and lighthearted. The trauma from the situation impacts my daily life. When I was 9 and Kim was 12, we were at my neighbor Nate's house, who was 13. Nate had an old storage trunk in his room. Kim convinced me to get in the trunk. The trunk had a built-in lock that didn't work. Once I was inside, they closed the lid, and somehow, the lock on the trunk suddenly worked again. They tried for several minutes to get it open. At first, I thought they were just messing with me, and pretending they couldn't open it. Once I realized they weren't joking, I began to panic. Nate refused to get his parents because he didn't want to get in trouble. He then began making jokes to scare me like let's throw the trunk down the stairs to see if that opens it and let's set it on fire and burn her out. After an hour of being trapped in there, he said I'm not getting in trouble for this, I'm going to watch TV. He and Kim left the room to go watch TV while I cried and panicked. They came back an hour later and tried opening the trunk again. My legs had gone numb and my whole body was aching. I had been crying for hours and told them I felt like I was running out of air. They discussed how they could get me out without getting trouble. Finally, after almost 3 hours of being stuck in there, he finally got his parents. His dad came running in with a crowbar and pried the lid open. His parents apologized to me profusely and grounded Nate. My parents did nothing to discipline Kim and told me I was being dramatic. That experience traumatized me, and to this day, I am severely claustrophobic. I can't even cuddle my fiancé because it's too constricting. Kim began telling the trunk story for the 1000th time, laughing throughout as if it was an amusing childhood story. Without raising my voice, I cut her off and said that's not a funny story, Kim. You're always telling this story like it's a cute tale from our youth. That was traumatizing. I have regular nightmares and flashbacks from that day. To this day, I have extreme claustrophobia. I could have died from suffocation. It's not like I was in there for 10 minutes, I was in there for almost 3 hours. Everyone got really quiet, and just kind of awkwardly stared at their food. We sat in silence for the rest of the meal. It definitely killed the vibe. Kim and my mom sent me angry texts saying that I owed Kim an apology for making a scene and ruining her birthday. Every time she tells that story, it's like I'm in the trunk again. All the trauma comes flooding back. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. Kim and your mom are awful. Have you considered going no contact? I can't imagine wanting to ever interact with such despicable people ever again. Edit saw that you have a good relationship with your niece. I can think of some solutions that do not involve no contact. How comfortable are you discussing your own trauma? Could you, hypothetically, make it your story instead of letting your sister tell her version over and over? Maybe that could work in the future? You're not the asshole. Your family not respecting your trauma is a problem. Maybe now they won't tell the story anymore. Not the asshole, and I think you should do this every single time that she tries to whip out this story from now on. Not the asshole. What horrendous behavior. If I had locked someone in a trunk for 3 hours, almost killing them, and causing lifelong trauma, I'd feel so ashamed, and guilty. I certainly wouldn't be shouting it from the rooftops. I'd never want anyone to find out what ISHG person I am. Not the asshole. You owe Kim nothing. What a total ass she is, and always has been apparently. Not the asshole, and I think I know exactly what type of trunk you are talking about. Children have died in them. I have one in my basement and I removed the lock from it completely to prevent anything like this from ever happening in my home, or wherever the trunk ends up next. PSA: if you have an antique storage trunk, just remove the damn lock. It could save a life or an irreparable amount of trauma. Not the asshole, but you need some boundaries. If this has happened 1,000 times and you keep coming back for more of it, at a certain point you kind of become a professional victim. From now on, when they want to drag you into another unpleasant social interaction, tell them you're busy and go live your life. Not the asshole: my brother used to roll out stories that were traumatizing to me, including his ginormous dog who grabbed my wrist in front of my young children. When I finally calmly said I didn't find it amusing, he stormed off to leave. What a relief to tell my truth and stick to it. I'm so sorry your family is so fracked up, it had to be a horrible experience. Good for you, Op, for staying calm, robbing your sister of her power, and telling your truth. That was brave. And strong. Don't demean yourself with any type of apology. You've done the hard part and stood up for yourself. Stick the landing. X200B. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your sister and mom are though. Not the asshole. Every time she tells that story you need to do the same thing, kill the vibe. Make it up fun for her to tell it. Maybe even start telling it whenever conversations turn to things that have traumatized people. Constantly bring this up in front of your family, or remind them of what she did to you and how it wasn't a funny story but was actually a traumatic, life-altering event. Make her and your parents cringe and wince every time that story is brought up instead of laugh. Not the asshole. JFC, why do you still associate with her? Why were you even at her birthday party? She sounds like a monster and your mom doesn't sound like much of a good human being either. Not the asshole. Definitely not the asshole that was sociopathic behavior. At least Nate's parents realize this. I know that you still want a relationship with your niece, but please prioritize yourself for your own mental health. Not the asshole, and it's time you stood up to Kim and your mom. They are both bullying you and they continue to do it. She doesn't mind embarrassing you repeatedly, it's time she got a taste of her own medicine. Don't apologize, drill it home. Hopefully confronting your bully will give you some relief. Not the asshole. If you are around her in the future, huge if, and she starts to tell that story again, say what really happened. Over and over again,